Today is September 21, 2004, and we are interviewing Richard Sena of Gloversville, New York, who served in the United States Army Transportation Corps, October 6, 1943 to September 1947. This interview is being conducted by Kenneth and June Hunter in Albany, New York at 1:20 in the afternoon. What is your full name and when and where were you born?
My name is Richard Sena. I was born in Gloversville, New York, October 6, 1925.
And what did you do before you entered the Army?
I was working in the tannery.
In the tannery. And did you go to school?
No, we were going to get drafted, and I left school early. And talking to the friends, we knew we had to go into the service. And a friend of mine told me that if you joined the Merchant Marine, you could go anywhere in the world. And I said, that was my call. I wanted to go see my grandfather, and I'm getting emotional. And that's why I joined the Merchant Marine.
Okay. And so once you joined the Merchant Marine, where did you go for your training and how did you learn your job?
Sheepshead Bay, New York, in Brooklyn, New York. And they were looking for volunteers to join the Merchant Marine. And I joined the Merchant Marine. And while there, I learned to be a helmsman, a deckhand. Graduated from Sheepshead Bay in January. I took one trip to South America. We went to Venezuela and Cuba. Came back, went down to the Union Army. They were looking for volunteers for the Army Transportation Corps. So I volunteered. There was a new Army tanker being made in Brooklyn, and I was signed on there as an able-bodied seaman. And we left there, we went to South Carolina, took on a load of diesel oil, destined for Hydrosis, Scotland. Cut it off.
You don't have to. You can, every now and then you can give a look up.
On the bow. He picked me and two others because we were 18 and the youngest. He figured whenever there was an alert, he wanted the fastest to run to the gun. You know, we had to help. We weren't stationed on the gun like the armed guard did. But wherever we were, on the helm, on the bridge, on the lookout, we were to run to the gun. I'll never forget the captain telling me, Sena, when you hear the alert, you run like a hell to the gun. He had a Swedish accent. While crossing the South Atlantic on the way to Southampton, we had to lay over the Azores. The rumor was that a German submarine Wolfpack was sighted off the coast of Africa and we had to stay there a week. We finally got orders to leave. If the subs were there, I'm sure after a week they would have run low on fuel and took off. A few years ago, while wintering in Florida, I came across an article in the Florida Today newspaper. A former German submariner, who is now an American citizen, was telling his story about being in the South Atlantic on a submarine patrol. He was in that Wolfpack, because at that time he was near the Azores where we were. So the rumor had been true. Isn't that something? I can remember that date. When the convoy split up and we were traveling along, we had to train and learn the gun and practice shooting. I was a loader. The man on the magazine would hand me a clip. They had 4 shells in the clip. I would jam the clip in the top of the gun, and the gunner would shoot the gun. There were no other ships around, that's how we trained. Every time we left port, going to Normandy on the English Channel, between England and France, we would practice. I was about 2 feet from the gun. We didn't have any ear protection. My ears are still ringing from the shooting. We practiced every chance we could. The captain timed us to get to the gun station. After a while, we improved as we went along. I lost some of my hearing. My ears haven't stopped ringing all these years. The only time I don't hear the ringing is when I'm asleep. After arriving in Southampton, taking on a load of gasoline to go to Normandy, we had to wait for a call to go. We had time to go to London. A bunch of us wanted to see London. We took a train and got there. We went to Piccadilly Circus in the heart of London. It was late in the afternoon. It reminded me of Times Square, New York City on New Year's Eve. It was crowded with servicemen from all over the world. Australians, New Zealanders, South Africans, Canadians, Americans.
Okay.
Indians, Free French, you name it. You could hardly move at all. We were waiting to go to Normandy. When nighttime came, nobody left. They were excited like I was to be there. Never did I think I would see London. And well, I did, and I don't think I'll ever go again. I've always heard of Big Ben. Nighttime came and there was a blackout. Then I heard what sounded like a Piper Cub plane coming home in the distance. They called it a B-1 rocket. Well, it was a flying bomb, a bug bomb. It never reached us. What happens is, when it runs out of gas, that's where it drops. We heard a loud noise, we heard another coming, same thing. Not enough gas to reach Piccadilly Circus. We looked up to see, we never saw another loud bang, good thing, like I said. It was so crowded, can you imagine how many people would have been killed there? Another incident happened a couple of days later in Southampton. We got our call to go to Normandy. We were supposed to stay in the channel between the buoys to get out of the port. Here we are, loaded with gas on our way. I was on the helm, and the captain was in the wheelhouse. He said to me, "Sena, never mind staying between the buoys," he said. "Go straight across." But wouldn't you know, we struck a sandbar and got stuck with the engines running. The captain said to me, "Get us off." With no orders what to do, I turned the helm, hard to port, hard to starboard, hard to port, hard to starboard. Finally got us off the sandbar. He said to me, "Get back in the channel." Captain was relieved. What if he didn't get off the sandbar? We had to unload some gas to get off. I bet the captain would have been embarrassed to call for help. He should have stayed in between the buoys. I think I saved him some embarrassment. First time we went to Normandy to deliver gas, we arrived about 5 p.m. What a sight to see. I never saw so many ships, thousands of them. We had to wait to unload our gas. When we got orders to unload, it was dark. When we went into Port and Besson to unload, Port and Besson was on Gold Beach. English soldiers were there waiting for us to dock the ship. It was very dark. No lights to help us. Heard? Cut.
Recording.
Yeah.
You got off the sandbar.
No, I was in.
Southampton, to London.
We went to Port and Besson to unload. Got that?
Yep.
Port and Besson was on Gold Beach. English soldiers were waiting for us to dock the ship. It was very dark, no lights to help us. I heard a soldier yell out, "Hello, Yank, over here." Cut. When I heard his voice, I could barely see him, it was so dark. Good thing he called out Yank to me. That's the first time I was called Yank. I threw him the line, we docked the ship. He says to me, "Blackout, you know. We can't have any lights on. But look at over there at Omaha Beach. Look at them bloody Yanks." It was all lit up, and he says, "Looks like Coney Island." We made 6 trips to Port and Besson from Southampton. On one of the trips, while we were making the trip to Besson, from Southampton to Port Besson, on one of the trips to Port Besson, we could hear the bombers bombing Le Havre. The waterfront bombed all of hell. When the big tankers would come into Le Havre to unload, we would pull up alongside to unload, then go up the river Seine to the Army gasoline terminal. We would unload in the small village south of Rouen. The American soldiers would unload us. This is where they would fill up the jerry cans. The Army trucks would come from the front and fill up with jerry cans. We made about 50 trips from Le Havre to the Army terminal. One day after we unloaded around the 1st of March, when we returned to Le Havre to load up, we had to wait our turn to load up. We had to drop anchor. While pulling in, we were looking to drop anchor. A British freighter was pulling up anchor, getting ready to leave. I was on the helm. The chain from the anchor pulled the ship to the line and the line went out. I blew the bow and the first hole completely off. That shook us all up. Ship's carpenter and seaman lost their lives. 2 trips later, we returned to get another load of gas in the same area. I just got off the helm. I was on a 4 to 8 watch. I had breakfast. I took my coffee out on the stern. We were looking to drop anchor near the same spot where that freighter was hit. A mine about 100 yards off our stern went off in our wake. There must have been something wrong with it. It went off late. Good thing. I wouldn't be writing about it now. I guess it was my turn to go. I know the Navy cleared a lot of mines, but they also missed a lot. I'm going now.
Ready.
Well, the war ended in Europe in July of 1945. I was discharged off the stinker. I came home. I took a month off. I went to New York City looking to make more trips. I wanted to see my grandfather. While I was in New York City, I found out that I could go to school, become an oiler and fireman water tender in the engine room. I had enough of the deck of the AB. It was too cold in the winter on deck. I wanted to go below where it was warm. The North Atlantic was colder than hell in the winter. I made many trips. You remember the Marshall Plan. We had to rebuild Europe and Japan. After many trips to Europe, we got orders to go to Japan with a load of soybeans. We went to Yokohama. There were about 200 Japanese soldiers waiting on the dock to unload us. They put planks on the dock up to the ship to unload us. The Japs would run up one plank and put a sack of soybeans on their shoulder and run down the other plank. They're short people and they worked like a bunch of ants. They were strong people. Up and down the plank all day. It took 4 days to unload us. Another time we had a load of wheat, we took to Dubrovnik, Yugoslavia. We were there a few days. About the last day before departure, some Italian prisoners of war struck on board. Here it was 2 years after the war, and they were still being held captives waiting to be sent home. The Yugoslavians were keeping them and making them work on the docks. Just before we pulled away from the dock, maybe a few hours before departure, a crewman came up to me and said, "Sena, we found a prisoner hiding and begging us not to turn him in." Being Italian, he wanted me to talk to him. I couldn't speak Italian, only a little bit, but I could understand what he talked about. He said they did not have any warm clothes. With winter coming, they would probably freeze to death. I felt sorry for them. We didn't like the communists very much anyway. You all remember the Cold War with Russia. But while being an oiler, I took him down to the shaft alley and I put him under the last bearing, gave him a bottle of water, a punch of Hershey bar, and told him to keep quiet. I told him we were going to Naples, Italy. He was so happy. The reason we were going to Italy was to bring home 400 GIs who were in.
Got defect.
Okay, go.
The reason why we were going to Italy was to bring home 400 GIs who were in the African campaign, the invasion of Sicily, and the invasion of Italy. It was a day and a half to get there. When I had a chance at nighttime, I took him up on the deck, brought him to the back of the hole, and gave him more Hershey bars of water, and down in the hole he went. We arrived at nighttime and anchored in the bay. The port of Naples was fenced in and guarded by the MPs. Now what do? I said. And we're not on the deck. It was nighttime. There was a ship anchored about 100 yards away from us. He told me his name, which I don't remember. He asked me for my name and address. I said I couldn't give it to him because I could get in trouble. I was happy to help him. We could hear the men on the ship talking. They were speaking Italian, so we knew it was an Italian ship. I put a line over the side. The last I saw him, he was swimming to the ship. He was a good swimmer. Sometimes I wonder if he made it, but I'm sure he did. He looked like a good swimmer. 100 yards isn't far when you're swimming for your life. We came back to the States. We took a load bound for Palestine, 1947 this was. It was still Palestine. We picked up a cargo of everything we could use on the West Coast. We landed in Haifa. The last English soldiers were leaving. That's when the English left and left them the country. They had enough of there. We couldn't unload in Haifa. We went to Tel Aviv to unload. There were no docks in Tel Aviv. We unloaded our cargo offshore onto barges. All Jewish young men were unloading us. They all had 45 calibers in their backpacks for protection. At summertime, they quit for the day. Then the shooting started between the Palestinians and the Jewish people. We weren't allowed to go on shore, it was too dangerous. It took us 40 days to get from California to Palestine. After supper, I came out on the deck with a cup of coffee and I looked at the shoreline. I was mad as hell that we couldn't go ashore because it was too dangerous. The shooting started again. I was the only one on deck looking at the shoreline. The shooting stopped for a minute, then one shot rang out. I heard a bullet coming at me. It went right over my head, it sounded just like a bumblebee. A little bit lower than it would have been curtains for me. He had it lined up all right. It was about a foot over my head. I said, let's go in before he takes another shot at me. That was a long time ago, and they're still shooting at each other, and when is it going to end or whatever. I come home and took another trip. This happened to be the last trip. It was July 1947, I got lucky. We were loaded with coal going to Genoa, Italy. But when we reached Gibraltar, our orders were changed to go to Catania, Sicily. My next and last trip paid off. This is what I wanted. I finally go see my grandfather. This happened to be the last trip.
Right.
That where I left off?
Yep, go ahead.
We were loaded with coal going to Genoa, Italy. But when we reached Gibraltar, our orders were changed to go to Catania, Sicily. My next and last trip paid off. This is what I wanted. I finally would see my grandpa. This is where my folks came from in 1906. The crew took my lodge for me for 4 days, and they knew what were happy for me. I took all the money I could get from my wages, bought clothes and anything they could sell to make money. They were poor. They had nothing. Poor after going through the war, you know. I had to take a train to the city where the folks came from. Then I took a cab. I told the cab driver the name of the street where my grandfather lived and the number of the house. When we got to the street where he lived, we stopped and started to look for the house. A young fella come over to help us. I told him the number of the house and who I was looking for. He looked at me and saw that I was dressed in khaki clothes. He knew I was American. He went over to my grandfather's house, stuck his head in the door and said, "Uncle." In Italy, out of respect, we always call older people uncle. He said there's an American kid out here to see him. I said, let me just see. In Italy, out of respect, they always call older people uncle. Mm-hmm. Okay. Got it? Mm-hmm. He said there's an American kid out here to see him. I got out of the cab, walked over to my grandfather's house. I was a little emotional. I was holding back the tears, and my grandfather looked at me for quite a while. I didn't say anything. I made him look at me. I said, "I'm your son, Jack's boy." Well, he looked at me and said, my son finally came home. My father was 21.
Okay, he said
My father was, did you get that far? My father was 20 years old when he left Italy, and I was 21 when I saw him. We shed tears. It took a war of 4 years for this to happen. I made the right choice by joining the Merchant Marines. I spent 4 days with my grandfather. He was 84 at the time. A couple of years later, he passed away. Out of 18 grandchildren, I was the only grandchild he saw. That must have been terrible. To have so many grandchildren and only see one. I'll never forget it. I'll remember it like it was yesterday. My mother had a sister over there also. When she heard I was in town, she came running down the street. She'd been out on the farm. There weren't many cars over there. I could still see her, how she looked like my mother. A couple of years later, my grandfather passed away. My father never went back. Never had the extra money. That's why I made up my mind to see it. It took 4 years in the war for this to happen. It was worth it. We both shed some tears. I always remember him. That was my last trip. I served my country. I saw my grandfather in many countries. And from what I saw, I have to say, this is the best country in the world. We have everything here. God bless America. And this is truly the best country in the world. So,
Now, when you came back from all this, did you come directly back from Italy to Gloversville, or?
that was my last trip. I come home and decided I did what I had to do.
Uh-huh.
I was not a seaman for life. Some of them are. Oh, I left somehow.
Yeah.
Now,
And then did you go?
You shut off.
you want to shut off?
At one point, Oh, and that.
Then you went back to
You
work
can
at
ask
the
me some
tannery?
questions in there.
Right, that's what I thought.
There-
Now, one thing I remember reading that you wrote down, one of the most emotional experiences you had while you were on ship was burial at sea. Could you
Yeah.
describe a little what that was like?
Awful. Is that, you want to tell me that now?
Yes.
Sure. You didn't know the person, did you?
No.
Was it a crew member from your ship?
No, on the ship next to us, still bad. You know what they do? Is that on?
Yes. Go ahead.
Well, they wrap them in canvas and put weight in them. There's a blink set up. We knew there was a death on the ship next to us. How would you keep a man? We were in convoy at the time. That's why. We knew the funerals were, we all went on and thick, paying our respects to somebody we didn't know.
Right.
And they just picked that blink up and that canvas went into the water.
Uh-huh.
All alone. I thought that was terrible.
Did they have a little religious service or anything?
We couldn't hear it, but all the men were out there and doing the respects, whatever
Yeah.
they doing. Captain said some words, we couldn't hear him, but we knew he was doing what he was doing. I thought that was terrible. What a lonely place to be. But you know, he might have been living on that ship all the time, because some seamen will stay on the ship for a long time. They have no home. They go when the ship goes, they go.
Yeah.
If it goes to war, they go. They're not going to quit. That's their home. So they follow the ship. And that's all I can say about that. A lot of seamen do that. They stay on the ship for life.
Yes.
Like me, I went during the war. That's why I was involved. And I volunteered, you know. I wasn't a volunteer, actually. Even though I joined the Merchant Marine, where I left. Merchant Marine and Army Transportation are all the same. But you go what the Army tells you, and you're signed on, and you don't get off.
Now, once you got out of the service, have you visited any of these other countries since you've been out of the...
If I had the money, I would have. I'd love to go back to Normandy. Oh, how I'd love to do.
What was a convoy like? I imagine you did travel in convoys.
It was terrible. It was good, don't get me wrong, but it was hard. We had 35 ships in our convoy, and everybody had to hold a position. Now, that was all right during the day, but at nighttime it was blackout. No lights. You had to rely on the lookout. I was on the wheel. I can't believe it. And this huge ship was alongside of us. Had to be 6 times bigger than our little tanker. Our little tanker was meant for the invasion and gasoline. He was alongside. Second mate happened to be out on the wing, come running Sena. Hard to port, hard to port. There's a ship as close as that ball. One of us drifted, probably me, too close. If he'd ever touched us, we'd have went under. He was so huge, he would have just pushed it down in. Hard to park, that means to the left. I spun that wheel so fast, and it started with. Then we kept going a little closer. Why? But it's dark. There's no lights on none of the ships at nighttime on the ocean. You see 35 ships during the day, they're spread out all over, but in the dark, you're going.
Did you have any naval protection at all
Oh,
in there?
in the beginning there was, but I tell you the truth, I don't think there was. We didn't have no destroyer escorts, we were just a convoy.
At any time did enemy aircraft spot your ships
On the
and take
convoy?
action?
Convoy, no, not there. But one time, we were going with gasoline a couple of times back, going with gasoline to Normandy, we saw ships. And the ship was alerted, we all took our positions, we didn't know if it was enemy or friendly. It was so high up, how could you tell? We had gasoline, we were worried, we shot off a clip. We never hit it, and I'm glad because it might have been friendly. But we did, we tried to protect ourselves, you know. What would you do with a load of gasoline?
Were you ever in any big storms or anything?
Oh, there were storms, not during convoy, but afterward, there was always a big storm, you know. Well, I used to went around it when you're on a freighter, you know. If you can avoid it, you go around it.
Because freighters don't move too quickly. do
Oh, no, 9, 10 miles an hour, 9 knots to go. In
they?
fact,
You said you were a member of a gun crew that was a battle station. How big was the gun crew and what did you do in the gun crew?
well, it was a 40 millimeter aircraft, and there were just 4 of us on the bow, the gunner, I was a loader, had 2 men on the magazine. My position was to stand next to the gun. There was 4 40 Miller shells in the clip, and to jam it at the top of the gun, and the gunner would shoot. That's all I could do. When you're doing that, you can't get your hole in the clip. You can't. Fucking ears are nothing. And I think I lost a lot of hearing, so anyway, quite a bit of hearing from that.
Did they feed you well on the ship?
Yeah.
What were your meals like?
Anything is good.
How were the living conditions? How did you
All
live?
right, clean, chips are clean, you know, you keep your
Right,
rooms up.
I mean, you had a lot of bunks and,
Yeah, well, we had 3, we was 4 to a room. That tanker was small, and we had 4 bunks in the room, 2 on this side, 2 on that side. It was not a big, it was meant to go into the beach, you know, and that's what I volunteered for.
Now, you said there were 4 to a room, and it was, I take it then there's a small crew on, about how many made up the crew?
Well, there was 3 able-bodied seamen, 3 ordinary seamen, 3 oilers, and whatever, wipers in the engine room, plus the captain, the first engineer and the second engineer, and on the crew was the first mate, second mate. That's what was on that ship, and the captain.
15 people.
Yeah, about that. And there were 2, I think, from the Navy that were the gunners, you know. We had a 50 millimeter gun on the bow, on the aft of the ship. But I was on the 40 millimeter on the bow. But you know, when you're young, you're gung-ho.
That's true.
I can't say I was scared. I didn't get shot at yet.
No.
I think when you get shot at, it's scared it out. But this is the truth, you know. We were there for it. We did our duty.
Some of the people that will be viewing this sometime in the future and studying and so forth, what was pay like and how did you get paid, and did you have an opportunity to spend, or did you just save money for coming back to the States?
Save money. When you're young, who saves money? No. No, when you went to London and everything, you spent your money. We didn't have too much time in France. We were at war there, you know. There was no place to go there. All we did was deliver our gas and go back and load out and back and forth. Once in a while, we could go ashore while they were unloading gas in small towns in the area and just walk around. And didn't have much to eat there anyway. They didn't have much themselves to eat, so we didn't look to eat anyway because we had all the food on the ship we wanted to eat.
When you went ashore, what were the people like? Friendly?
All the friends, yeah, we were there to help them. Sure, they were very friendly. Yeah.
And I imagine you saw a lot of devastation that they went through, the ruined homes and...
Oh my God. We passed Brest, and there were the German submarine pens were there. And when we passed it, you could see these holes, concrete pens. They were there, and when they bombed everything but the pens. The English and American. They missed the pens and bombed the whole city. Half the city on the waterfront was gone. That night, this was during the day, why we went there, I forget. Anyway, we went ashore and it was dark. We're walking and walking, and you see a gendarme all alone standing there and says, "Where's Brest?" I said, "Here." He says, "Here." I know, I said, "Where's Brest?" He says, "Here." It was gone, it was all bombed. The waterfront was gone, we couldn't see it in the dark, you know. I mean, we thought we were in an open field. Yeah, that's what we saw in Brest.
Now, you mentioned that you were involved after the war in bringing supplies under the Marshall Plan. There are some people that don't know what the Marshall Plan was and what kind of supplies you brought over. Could you tell us?
Yeah, wheat. We brought wheat to to Piraeus, Greece. We brought wheat to Dubrovnik, Yugoslavia. We brought soybeans to Japan, coal to Italy, wheat. I'm trying to think of some other countries. It was such a long time ago. We went quite a few places. We went to Palestine we brought boxes, broken down boxes from lunch crates and stuff like that. We brought a huge dump. It was on the deck, 2 huge dumps. Imagine those dump roots of a tree that they made pipes out of. We brought that to Palestine. And that's about it. There's a lot of things we brought.
It's amazing, you were mentioned earlier that they were fighting then, and here it is, nobody has learned a lesson, they're still fighting today.
It's real sad. And I remember that like yesterday, and my God, I don't know why they don't settle that thing one way or another. Somebody's got to get in over there and do the best they can. I don't know how they're going to do it, but somebody has to do something.
Now,
That's sad.
it's been a long, long time since the war. How long has it been before you got recognized for your service and qualified for veteran status and getting care at a VA facility?
Well, you know, I never even thought about it because we never recognized it. I just gave up on it, you know. Finally, in 1988, some of the old timers in merchant seamen, they didn't give up. They fought for it and they fought for it, and I got to give them credit. I think they finally, well, President Roosevelt was supposed to give it to us, and he died. If he'd survived, we'd have had it a long time ago. You know, the English recognize the merchant marines as veterans. The Canadians just gave their merchant marine one big bonus for what they didn't give them during the war. You know, they say we made a lot of money, but you know, when we got discharged off the ship, we got discharged for our pay that it was that. We got no clothes, we got nothing. But if we didn't pay us a little, they say we should have made like the Army. Well, they were taken care of. They didn't have to buy their clothes. I'm just trying to say, we had problems, we did the best we could, you know.
And I guess it was like the services, when they got discharged from the services, from the Army, Air Force, so forth, they were given money to go back home. This wasn't the case with you. You had to take it out of your pocket.
Yeah. In fact, when I got home and I had to pay off, I paid income tax on it. I paid $400 out of my wages, and I just got back from war. You figure that out.
Where were you discharged from?
Out my ship, I was on a troop ship. General Ernst with 10,000 troops. When I got off the Army tanker, we got on it in Le Havre, France, and it brought us to Norfolk, Virginia. And what a sight to see.
I bet you were ready to kiss the ground.
10,000 troops on that ship. And you want to know something that bothers me now? I can't remember what I ate on that ship. If I had a meal, I remember everything. I stood there and said, why don't I remember eating on that ship? 6 days on that ship, coming back. And I can remember all the crap games on the deck and all this was going on, but I can't remember eating a meal. And it bothers me that I don't remember that, but I guess it wasn't important. I ate anyway, you know.
I bet there are a lot of soldiers there that were seasick on the trip coming.
Oh, terrible. That wasn't too bad. It didn't bother me, but
I take it when you went, you adjusted easily to it when you came out of your training from Sheepshead Bay.
Yeah, when you become, see, after a while you get used to it. But them poor guys on that troop ship coming back. The head, which you know is the head, right? It was in the bow of the ship. One big head, all back toilets, right? And wide staircase. That was a troop ship, but at one time it was a passenger ship. It was a big wide staircase going down. You went down to do your job, but you ran out of there because it was up chuck all over the stairs. It was terrible. But I get out of there as fast as I can. It would make you throw up if you didn't run out. If you stayed, the smell was terrible. Them poor guys. No, that's what it was.
When you were transporting them, were you as packed in as the soldiers were, or did you have special quarters for yourself?
When we brought back those 400 GIs from Naples, one of the engineers became friends. I don't know how he became friends, but he became friends with a half a dozen of them. You know what my job was? I had to get each one of them guys a dish of food out out of our line so they didn't have to wait in line with the GIs. Every day, Sunday, said, go get them guys a dish. And they would be all in the room there, good and happier and healthy. They were even different from the other guys. Yeah. I didn't mind doing it. They were fun. What the hell, they went through a lot. Yeah.
What was it like when you got back to the States? What was the mood over here? Were people friendly, happy? They glad the war was over?
Yeah. But, you know, I came back 2 years after the war. The war ended in 46 in Japan. The saddest part was we had returned, the war was over, and we were in New York City. And the war ended in Japan. Where do you think we were? On a ship leaving New York, anchored off the Statue of Liberty, and it was BJ Day in New York. And here we are, getting ready for another trip. One day less, we could have been downtown New York and joined with everybody else. We were all upset over that. I wish I could have been. But I was in Europe on Victory in Europe in France.
How did you find out that?
Everybody gave the peace sign.
How did you find out that the war had ended in Europe?
I was there.
What, did they have any special announcements?
Oh, well, yeah. We were all anchored in Le Havre. All the ships all lined up alongside each other. You know how we celebrated it? By shooting our guns off in the sky over the ocean. Everybody wanted to shoot their guns off. They were happy as hell. Yeah, we were happy. Yeah, we ended.
And then when you came back, after you were finished with the Merchant Marines and all, and you returned to civilian life, did you get involved with any veterans organizations?
I wasn't a veteran.
Wasn't that?
Now, can you become involved with the VFW or American Legion now?
They are recognizing us now. Yeah.
They are.
Yeah. But I belong to the Merchant Marine down in Florida. I joined it down there. They have a club, all those timers. A couple of years we'll all be gone.
Oh, not necessarily.
All be gone.
So then you went to work in the tannery in Gloversville?
Yeah, I went back to where I left off. But this story is all on the time of the Merchant Marines. They kept writing to me and said, give us your story. Give us your story of what you go through. They're trying to hold the group together. But it can't be much longer, you know. They're trying to hold the group together, and I sent them this story.
So have you been to any of their reunions or anything?
I don't know why. I think I'm going to make it next year if I get down there, because I'm going to make it a point. Because I keep getting letters from them, and we do go down there when we can. And I'm going to go spend a few days. It's down there in Florida. It's maybe a 3-hour ride from where we stay, but I'm going to plan on it.
Oh, you should.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you very much for giving us your interview. And
Lots of good luck in the future.
Is that going to come out all right?
It's
You